Hello everyone, it's December. If you look outside my window, you'll see that the world agrees completely and totally wintertime. We woke up to a ton of snow. It's supposed to be snowing all day, especially in the evening, and probably more tomorrow. So here we go, December. But December also means that it's time to do a little monthly wrap-up video. And as you know, last month I had a nice wrap-up of 0 books, but this month I read 2. I worked on others, but I finished 2 books. The first one I read while we were on our trip, the first part of the month, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Has anyone heard of this book? I feel like this book is still new because there's so much about it still. It's just like everywhere. I picked it up earlier this year at one of the bookstores I went to. You can check out that video if you want. Decided it was time for me to know what all the buzz was about. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it. But is it as good as all the buzz it's getting? I don't know. It didn't blow me away. It didn't make me go, oh my gosh, I gotta read the next one. I'm not sure about the characters. It's an intense, violent, ruthless book, really. Those usually aren't my most favorite. So I guess that's probably my little bit of a hang up with it. And it started out quite slow, this one did. I'm wondering that the next one might not have that problem, but it did start out quite slow, and I was to the point that I was wondering, is anything gonna happen? For those of you who aren't on the wagon with this series yet, it's a fantasy, and I guess considered now this new genre that I'm hearing all over the place, romantasy. So romance in a fantasy. So we have our girl who lives in this village on the edge of the kingdom where there's a wall that separates them from the fairylands. I can't remember now what it's called. Prythian? Mortal Lands and Prythian. Yeah. So inside the fairylands, there's all these different courts, and she ends up getting kidnapped by the Spring Court. She gets kidnapped because she kills a wolf who ends up being one of their fairy dudes. She was a little worried at the time that that might be the case, but she had convinced herself that it was just a wolf. Turns out it was not. So they come and they take her away. So previous to the book starting, there's a treaty years ago between the Mortal Lands and the Fairylands. They built a wall, and they agreed to not bother each other, I guess. But as part of that treaty, if somebody kills someone, they are allowed to kidnap her and take her away. Oh, gosh, does that even make sense? Okay, so she ends up living in the Spring Court with the fairy guy that kidnapped her. And you can probably guess that they end up falling in love. I'm not gonna say much more about him, so I don't spoil everything, but they have a curse on them, and in the end, it's up to her to break this curse. And it's crazy, and it's very violent, and there's a lot of torture involved, and I really struggle with reading stuff like that. So despite all that, that made the second half of the book very, very page-turning and a little breathtaking, you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm a little intrigued, so I might read the second book. The second book is the one that's on all the banned / challenge book lists. So since I'm gonna try and do that banned books challenge this year, then I might as well read it, right? We'll see how that goes. But I must say, it was a fine book, but I just don't quite get the obsession with it. I was trying to concentrate on Oathbringer still, but I've given up on Oathbringer for right now. I will revisit this one in the next year, and hopefully I can finish it next year. So I knew that if I kept concentrating on this book during November, then I wouldn't get anything else read. So I decided to read something that I thought would be a little easier, and on my Kindle, I had the reading list by, is it Sarah too? Sarah and Nisha Adams. 2 Sarahs this one. And so it's about a young girl who works at a library in London, and she's struggling because of her mom and her brother, and her dad left them, and she's sort of angry, and she doesn't really want to work at the library. And then it's also about this older guy who's struggling because his wife died and he's older, and he thinks everybody thinks that he's incapable of doing anything. And anyway, he ends up deciding to read some of the books that his wife read. He found A Time Traveler's Wife in their room and he read it, and then he went to the library and said, what else can you recommend to me? And he happened to meet this girl that was working there, and she was really ornery towards him, and then she felt bad, and then she had found a reading list that had several books on the list, and she decided she would suggest for him to read one of the books on that list. And so then they end up together going through the list, and in the meantime we learn kind of the backstory of the list and who else got a hold of it, but we don't know where it came from. So the whole mystery is that's revealed at the end, where this list came from, who wrote the list in the first place. But the fun thing about it is going through all the books with them and seeing how they related it to their own struggles, and it helped them get through things for the most part, right? And we see their growth. They have a big time, huge growth arc in the book, and they're doing a lot better by the end. Thank you to the books. It's basically a love letter to libraries, because this girl works at this teeny tiny little library, and so they make a big deal about how important libraries are and how it's a community center and a place for people to be themselves and hang out. And I really felt that because I do work at the library and I see some of the struggles the library is having, especially in this day and age. I don't feel like libraries are going to be going away, but their role constantly changes. It's insane the power that the community feels the library has. Like, that's why the whole ban of books and censored books seems to be a recurring theme for libraries right now, because everybody knows that libraries have this role in the community that is really powerful. So it was a love letter to libraries, a love letter to reading and books, and I'm going to do a separate video, so please look forward to that, talking in more detail about the books that were on the list. So if you are interested in that, look for that. Those are the 2 books that I got read. I also listened to almost half of Becoming by Michelle Obama. I'm doing the audiobook, guys, while I do some Christmas sewing that I'm doing, some projects and stuff. So usually I blast music, but I'm like, okay, let's try this audiobook thing. And it's working out pretty good. And I am pretty invested in that story now. Although I do feel like I do not relate to anything she's talking about, even remotely. Her life is definitely different from my life. Let's just say that. I will report more on that next month. Hopefully I do get it done before it goes away off of my Libby. I did a lot of nonfiction and memoirs this year. I feel like I haven't really counted and looked back, but I feel like I can do nonfiction and memoirs, particularly in audio form. So that maybe will be a goal of mine next year. I don't know, to do more that way. I don't know. In December, I have not a whole lot of plans because December, as we know, is a little crazy. I am reading The Christmas Murder Game on the Kindle by Alexandra Benedict for book club. We are of the habit of trying to read some sort of Christmassy book for our December book club, and then we have a party and do a book exchange. So we're looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. So hopefully I will get that book read, although I am predicting that I'm going to struggle through it, but we'll see how that goes. And then the other day I went through the Christmas books in my Christmas basket. I'm going to be uploading that video very soon as I get it edited. But in that basket, there was several books that I thought, dang, I don't think I've read these, and they're really small and easy. So I might read a couple of those if I can fit them in and add to my tally, because I am not to my Goodreads goal yet. So we'll see. And since I just went and visited Louisa May Alcott's house and home and city, maybe I will do this really short, easy one, The Quiet Little Woman, A Christmas Story. That's one. And then there's one called The Christmas Secret by Donna Van Leer. And it's a little, I feel like I could go through it pretty fast, but it's a little bit longer. It might take me, a little bit, but I feel like I will be doing really good just to get those 3 Christmas books read before the craziness of the actual holidays start. And then after Christmas, sometimes I will pick up whatever I might get under the tree and read that, in the week between Christmas and New Year's, if there's something that I'm dying to read and that I can just read real quick. So hopefully that happens. Also, I think I've mentioned in some other videos that I have participated in the years past on a judging panel for an award that I don't think many people have heard of. It's a small organization, I think. In the past, I've done middle grades for that. But this year they asked me to be on the panel for YA, and that means that they will be sending me the books. So as soon as those books start coming, I will be reading those also. And I'm guessing that could be in the next couple weeks or so. Stay tuned for those books that will be on that list. I know Brandon Sanderson's one of the ones on the list, Trust of the Emerald Sea. And also Casey West, whose book I read earlier this year, Borrow My Heart, is on the list. So those are the kinds of things that will be in that pile. So we'll see how that goes and if I start having to read those before this month is over. So those are the plans for my TBR for this month. I feel like that's a pretty good little direction for this month. There's so much going on. I have tons to do. People are coming for Christmas. I'm hosting Christmas stuff. It's gonna be fun. Until next time, happy reading.